I was either going to lose the leg or have a serious muscle problem but it stopped. And then during rifle season, I decided, well, I blew this whole rut functional hunting is what Jerry calls it. I blew that all with my legs. So,
right.
But I had kept putting urine out in the scrapes, and the scrapes were still being worked up.
Huh.
So I went out to this stand, and it was towards the end of the evening. I saw out in the CRP, it was kind of a set aside strip, this deer stand up, and I put my binoculars on it, and I was like, I couldn't tell what all. I saw some horn, but I just thought, man, that's a huge body. And as I got up to him, I saw, it had this big rack. But yeah, it's a nice deer. And it was really, to me, it's a testament of that deer just hung in that area because it was totally hoodwinked, that there was, and I use that method to this day. I've gotten nice deer.
Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 248. Paul Kurtz, Coffee and Deer Camp, a hunter's perfect blend. Support for the Big Buck Registry and the Deer Hunt Podcast comes from Hunter's Blend Coffee, imported directly from family farms, roasted and brought to you by hunters who support the hunting industry. Polar Works Coolers and the Chill Zone, specializing in the most durable, reliable thermal cups and coolers. Keep your drinks hot or cold in any element. Covert Scouting Cameras, remote cameras for hunting, wildlife, and security. Morse's Sporting Goods, a full line of sporting goods without the sales tax. And Big Buck merch. You can get cool, high-quality Big Buck t-shirts, long-sleeve t-shirts, and hoodies. And show support for this podcast by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/MERCH. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey guys, this is Dan Bates with Coon Archery, the timeman and inventor of the Hang-On Helper. You're listening to my favorite show. It's about to be yours, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
I'm James Flankenbeckler from Open Season TV, and you're about to listen to my favorite podcast, The Big Buck Registry.
This is Rob Richardson from New Hampshire Shadowhunters Club. You're listening to my favorite podcast of all time, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, fellow predators. My name is Jay. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. For Dusty Phillips and Jim Keller and the entire staff here at the Big Buck Registry, welcome to this week's show. There are a couple things I'd like you to do for us if you could. If you would, please check us out on iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. With your help, we're going to try and push this show up the iTunes charts. I know we have a lot of listeners out there, and I need you to take some action. I need you to leave a review and subscribe to the show. If you do subscribe, that'll give you access and notification each and every week that a new show is released. You can also access this show in its entirety on YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. It's all right there for you to access on demand at your fingertips. Regarding the harness program, we have an ample supply of harnesses to give away from our volunteer donors. If you're in need of a full-body harness, please send an email to jay@bigbuckregistry.com. There's always something special about a cup of coffee at deer camp. It can even be a crappy cup of coffee, but it still tastes pretty darn good. But what if the coffee actually was good? And what if you knew that the coffee itself was created by a group of folk that support hunting, gun rights, and were hunters just like you? The aroma and the taste of that cup would be better than any cup of joe that you've ever had before. Paul Kurtz understands the complexities of this phenomenon, and that's exactly why he created Hunter's Blend Coffee. We'll get to our entire interview with Paul Kurtz in just one moment, but before we do, let's hear from our friends at Polar Works Coolers and Jim Keller with the deer news. Folks, I want to tell you about one of the best coolers I've found for the price in quite a while. I always wanted one of those high-end coolers because of the quality that I had heard of, but I couldn't justify the price. Then I found Polar Works. Finally, I found a company that understands quality and affordability. The Polar Works lineup is extensive and is filled with Polar cups, Polar tubs, and Polar soft coolers. What do I love about these coolers? Well, for one, the ice stays frozen for a long period of time. But they've thought of other things in their design. For example, drain speed. No one likes a slow drain after a long weekend on the trail. And there's the non-slip Polar Feet. Polar Feet will prevent sudden movement when you're on the move. So check out polarworks.com when you're considering your next high-quality cooler without breaking the bank. That's www.polarwerkz.com.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, Michigan House, no future deer sterilization for Ann Arbor. This story is from the Detroit Free Press website. The Michigan House wants to halt permits that allow sterilizing hunting game, which could potentially draw the curtain on Ann Arbor's endeavors to contain its raging deer population. In a 69-40 vote on Tuesday, lawmakers passed a bill prohibiting the State Department of Natural Resources from issuing more sterilization permits until April 1st of 2022. The legislation would allow Ann Arbor to finish its ongoing sterilization work with White Buffalo, a private company contracted by the city to remove deer ovaries in an experimental research program. Ann Arbor's ongoing deer infestation is especially fraught due to a dense urban setting in some neighborhoods that makes directly shooting the deer too dangerous. The city is the only in Michigan with a DNR-approved game sterilization plan. The bill now heads to the Senate. Bear locks himself in car, rescued by police in Colorado. This story is from the Fox News website and was reported by Travis Fedshun. Turns out he wasn't smarter than the average bear. A curious bear ended up needing help from police in Colorado on Monday after breaking into a vehicle and getting locked inside. The Boulder County Sheriff's Office said in a Facebook post they responded to a report of a vehicle trespass and came across the unusual suspect on Conifer Hill Road, located about 60 miles northwest of Denver. A bear broke into a car and locked himself in. Car 0, Bear 1, the sheriff's office said. Deputies were able to open the door and safely let the bear out without anyone, including the animal, being harmed. The sheriff's office said that bears are now beginning to look for food in neighborhoods as warmer weather approaches. Rare white deer roams Kensington Metro Park near Milford, Michigan. This story is from the Detroit Free Press website and was reported by Bill Leitner. A rare white deer has been attracting admirers almost since it was born last year, according to nature buffs and officials at Kensington's Metro Park near Milford. We started seeing her in spring of 17. I've seen her quite a few times, said Dave Kerbach, deputy director of the Metro Park system, officially the Huron-Clinton Metro Park Authority. He said the unusual deer, whose coat is sheer white and whose nose is pink and has bluish eyes, is one more reason that nature lovers enjoy coming to Kensington Metro Park, about 30 miles west of Detroit. The deer is often seen in early morning grazing on the park's east side near the entrance to the golf course, he said. Unlike a true albino deer, which would have pink eyes, Kensington's white deer has a pink nose but bluish eyes that indicate it's a genetic variation less rare than an actual albino, according to the website protectthewhitetaildeer.com, based in Wisconsin. Albino and other exotic all-white deer were once illegal to hunt in Michigan, but the state lifted protection of the creatures in 2008. Nature buffs criticized Metro Park officials in 2015 when sharpshooters hired to reduce the deer herd because it was destroying vegetation shot a rare white buck. Several states continue to have laws forbidding hunters from taking white deer. Such laws have been criticized by online naturalists who call them a holdover from age-old bans on hunting the animals when they were linked to mystic powers. In 2014, a Heartland, Michigan boy, then 11, legally shot a 12-point white buck with a crossbow, but after the sixth grader's feat was posted online, there were thousands of negative comments posted on USA Today's website, including death threats against the youth and his father, according to the paper's follow-up report. Dog arrested for picking fights with deer. This story is from the Fox News website and was reported by Michelle Gant. A bad dog in Canada who ran away from his owners to chase a deer was arrested and detained in the back of a cop car. Reed Thompson and his girlfriend were walking on a trail with their pup, Finn, in Kenora, Ontario, when they decided to let him off his leash. But instead of sticking around, Finn caught the scent of something interesting and took off after it, Thompson told Fox News. Clearly on a mission, Finn ignored the calls and whistle from his owners. About 30 minutes later, Thompson received a call from the Ontario Provincial Police saying they had the dog and he was in a bit of trouble. I was informed that Finn had been causing some chaos as he chased a deer along the road through the hospital grounds and back onto the road. They tangled for a bit, up and over a guardrail and down into the ice. Eventually the deer got away and Finn gave up the chase. The police told Thompson Finn had been, quote-unquote, detained. When he arrived to pick up the dog, Thompson said he got a stern lecture about keeping the dog on a leash, and that there could be a follow-up from the city by animal control officers. Finn, meanwhile, was sitting in the back seat of the cop car behind barred windows looking guilty. Thompson's daughter, Emmy, shared a photo of the pup on Twitter. The tweet has since gone viral, receiving 500,000 likes and 144,000 retweets as of Monday morning. People couldn't help but make some clever jokes about Finn's criminal record, as well as share photos of their own dogs under arrest. Emmy wrote on Twitter that Finn's future is still unknown. He's out now, but we're still waiting to find out what'll happen to him. He's a good boy, he just hates deer. Thompson added that besides being a little sore from the chase, Finn seemed pretty proud of himself, though he wasn't too happy about getting cleaned up afterwards. He didn't like the bath he got afterwards. The baby powder spritz spray didn't match his new bad boy image he is trying to cultivate, Thompson said. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. Special thanks to Daniel Applebaum for leads on some of this week's stories. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have any questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here is Paul Kurtz. Paul Kurtz, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, Jay. How are you doing?
We just got pounded with snow again in New England, and I'm not too psyched about it, I have to tell you.
I love snow, but it's the wrong time of the year.
It's the wrong time of the year. I love snow, especially deer season, but man.
I used to travel to Russia a lot, and their word for spring, it's a one long word, but it actually means winter and summer duking it out. And we know summer's going to win, but in the meantime, they're fighting. And that's spring. That's for real this year.
That's a good perspective on that. It's probably pretty darn accurate. It's crazy what's happening right now. You said that some of the farmers in your area might be a little concerned.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they like to be out planting by now. And it's not just wet. It's just weird. You know, you got snow laying up. We got snow, white patches.
That's not good. Not good at all. Well, Paul, I appreciate you coming on the show. You have graciously sponsored our show with your coffee, Hunter's Blend, and I sincerely appreciate you doing that. But more so, and I didn't ask you to come on the show because you're a sponsor. I think you're an interesting guy. You have a very interesting story, so you would have eventually ended up here no matter what. But I love what you're doing with this product, and here's why. It's very unusual to hear the story where somebody has gotten a product and said, you know what, the reason you should buy my coffee is because the vast majority of the other coffee producers, or just say it's any old product, go against the causes that we as hunters believe in. And that alone resonated with me, and I think it's starting to resonate as we spread your message about the coffee. Now, the message is tremendous, but your coffee's darn good too.
Yeah, and that really is a differentiating part. It's our whole heartbeat. We love hunting. I mean, as we get into this, just it's been a part of my life, all my life. It's how I defrag. It's there's never a bad day when I'm out hunting, and I love coffee. And I've always in my family, we always drank coffee. My grandmother, it was hideously weak. But as I began following just coffee and its sources and just the different, in coffee now that I'm in it, we talk about different waves. And we're in a wave called the third wave, where it's about origin, it's about place, it's about people, it's tracing it right back to the farmer. And as you follow that, and of course, you know, Starbucks and Caribou and the big players that are in this movement, you also realize that you're in bed with people that really do not support a thing that we are passionate about, whether it's guns or bow or eating animals that we kill or harvesting animals, and they work against that cause. And so there's a conundrum. It's not the really main reason why I got into coffee initially, but it certainly is sorting out to be, this is very important to me.
Gotcha.
That I support causes that are not working against what I'm love and appreciate.
Have you ever done any historical background on why the coffee of yesterday was so weak? And I think of it as like diner coffee. It seems like I haven't met a really great cup of coffee in any diner across America.
Brother, have I got a history lesson for you? I'll keep
right.
it real short.
Excellent.
1776, we rebelled against King George in the famous Boston Tea Party.
Yes.
You would know that up in your part.
Extremely familiar, yeah.
Yeah, the colonial women, took to the woods to find sassafras root and teas and different beverages that they could brew to replace the tea that was no longer coming into the markets. The Dutch actually exploited. They had a ship in Java Port, Indonesia, and it was the worst coffee that they could put on the ship because they had no hope that it would get through. And it was the most dilapidated ship that they could find because they were thinking it probably would get sunk. And so they tried to get into, I don't know which colony of the 13 it was, but they actually got in. And history says that the American palate went to coffee like moth to a flame. We loved it. But if you think about it, it was the worst coffee, which means it was very bitter. Yeah. It would be a very bad representation of coffee. And ever since then, it seems historically America's been importing the cheapest and the worst coffee. There's two ways to deal with that. One is to put a lot of cream and sugar in it,
right?
Which Americans, 80% of them put cream and or sugar,
right?
And the other is to brew it really weak. And so I think historically we could probably track the coffee that was imported and available for early roasters was pretty bad.
Gotcha.
So it had to be weak or a lot of cream and sugar.
Gotcha.
Really good, high-grown, hard bean coffee that has something has some good flavor. It doesn't need cream or sugar. Now, people would still, if you get used to that, it doesn't matter if it's really good coffee, people still will put some sugar or cream in it, but it doesn't have to have it to make it palatable.
Right. Gotcha. I mean, I really appreciate a great cup of coffee. And if I can find one of those smaller coffee shops where I can go and experience that, I'd rather do that. I don't like Starbucks. I mean, I know they're a popular brand, but man, I just don't really love Starbucks at all. The big brand around here is Dunkin's. They make fun of Dunkin' Donuts, and I do love that coffee. And for years and years, that was the only coffee that was allowed in my house. And until I met your coffee passed the sniff test with the wife, which is very hard to do because she is a chef with an incredibly clean and talented palate, by the way. So if she says it's okay, we're on the right track here.
Yeah.
So
well, it's interesting, Jay. I don't want to cut you off, but it's really hard to in an objective way say what is good coffee because we consume coffee totally for pleasure.
Right.
It's not for nutrition there's no guru, coffee god saying this is good and this is bad. It's whatever you like. If you like it weak, if you like it bitter, if you like it smooth, if you like it dark or thick and everybody has a right to enjoy the coffee they like.
Right.
It's a lot like if people are into microbrewed beer, local little roasters versus, a big Miller's, a big brand.
Right.
Some people just say, I just drink anything. Well, as long as they've tried the specialty brews. And if somebody comes in our shop and says, hey, I just like it black and dark and I don't care what it is, I'll say, have you tried an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe natural process? I don't know what you're talking about. Right. Well, here, let me brew you one.
Right.
And sometimes they light up. Wow, I never tasted blueberry in my coffee or strawberry or watermelon in my Sumatra.
Right.
Well,
right.
Give it a shot. But some people drink it, and I call them winos. It doesn't matter if it's Mogan David or Chardonnay. That just give me something it's coffee.
Right.
And
right.
I get it. It's whatever they like.
Right.
Yep.
And I understand that. And I'm not going to push a coffee on somebody, but boy, once you kind of turn somebody on to what a good cup of coffee is versus the stuff they've been drinking, it's pretty clear what they're going to do. We field tested Hunter's Blend amongst hunters, and I'm subjective, and I'm always I'm waiting to see their reaction because I'm in Duncan land, man. This is not something that I'm going to break through that barrier very easily. But I've brought your coffee pre-made in pump pots to some of these open houses where hunters are hanging out, and every single one of them love it. They have, and these are some guys who, like I did not welcome even the thought of another cup of coffee in my household. But these same guys, like me, have said, "Yeah, this is darn good." So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm not trying to push it, but I sat back and I observed and I asked and I said, "Did you like it? Did you not like it?" They all said they liked it. So we're off.
It's a lot of Nicaraguan, Central America, which roasted to the level we do, a little darker. It has some chocolatey notes to it, and then we also put some Thailand coffee, which is a very strange, you might say, or not familiar coffee in the U.S. We import a couple containers a year of Thai coffee, and that is a very complex. It light, medium roast. It wakens it up. All has sort of a different taste, and we put our own proprietary roast on it and blend it in with that. So it's a different. The Hunter's Blend coffee is a set apart. It's different than what you're going to get it's has a little different character. And yeah, we worked hard. We did a lot of blind tests around here trying to get it to the right profile that would catch 95% of the people to say they like coffee. Would they like this? Yeah.
Gotcha. Where does all this go down? I mean, because you spend time away from the country to go and find the right beans, and somewhat familiar with your background and how you got to it. I want to hear that story. But where does all this happen? I mean, you have to get the beans from somewhere, but then you got to do something with it. Where does this happen?
Yeah. Well, we're located in Mechanicsburg, Ohio, which is between Dayton and Columbus. And we have a warehouse. We import 4 to 5 containers a year, mostly from Central America and East Asia and East Africa. And, it all comes in. Coffee is harvested over kind of from Thanksgiving to January, kind of a 2, 3, 4 month period there. So shipments happen in March, April. So we're bringing in coffee right now, trying to get it right so that we have enough for the year. But it's a one-time sort of shipment purchase. And then if I run out of what I've direct purchased from the farms that I travel to, I'll get a skid here and there from a broker that I trust, that I know. But
gotcha.
We're mostly direct import.
Okay. How did you get into the coffee business to begin with?
Well, I worked for a church organization, was traveling. Actually, one summer, I would say it's probably the year 2000. I made a trip from Kenya to Ecuador to Costa Rica. And every meeting I was with church leaders and community leaders, and they were wanting money. That's basically our organization did a lot of funding of water projects and development projects and literature and women's retreats and on leadership training. And they would just ask for money. And I remember particularly this one day I was in Costa Rica. I had just been to Kenya and Ecuador and landed in Costa Rica and right back on a coffee farm at a retreat setting. And all the people there were coffee farmers. And they were asking our organization for money. And we did a lot of that. But I remember I kind of knew the answer, but I just played with them a little bit. I said, listen, here's how we do it in America. I just paid $15 for a pound of Costa Rican coffee before I left home. And you're the farmer. And in America, we take the discretionary monies that's left over after we pay the bills, and we give it to organizations or to our church or to our fires department, causes that we want to see prosper and expand. And that's how we get our causes funded. Why don't you guys do that? Why are you asking me? Why are you asking our organization? And they looked at me like I was from some other planet. Like, don't you know? And I said, don't I know what? There's no money in coffee, they said. We are just, and I remember a couple years later, I was bouncing down this dirt road outside of Matagalpa, Nicaragua, with Diego Chavarria, a coffee farmer, and he'll probably listen to this podcast. I've got him hooked, and he said, "I am a happy man." I said, "Why are you a happy man, Diego?" He said, "I don't have any money." I said, "Oh, wait a minute, something's getting lost in translation here. You don't have any money and you're happy." He said, "Well, what I mean is, I sold all my coffee. I have no money, but I paid all my bills.
Gotcha.
I'm even. I'm broke, but I'm out of debt."
Right.
And that's a good day for a coffee farmer. And as these guys began to tell me how it really worked, that supply and demand and New York Board of Trade kind of sets the price, it really doesn't matter what a farmer's inputs and costs are. We're going to tell him, the New York Board of Trade, commodity pricing is going to tell the buyers what they're going to pay, and the sellers are going to sell. And it kind of set me on a search to figure out, I didn't really want to quit my day job and start roasting and everything, but I just thought if I could connect some of these guys from Ecuador or Kenya or Costa Rica who were like brothers to me, I'd stay in their homes for a week or two, and we were just good friends. And if they could just sell their coffee directly to a roaster up in the States, man, that would help them see more of that money and cut out all the middle guys.
Right.
And I did some consulting. I paid big bucks to sit at the feet of a coffee guru in Corvallis, Oregon, actually.
Yeah.
And he said, "Dude, you're going to lose your shirt." And I was like, "Why? Why is that?" He said, "Well, there's a lot more coffee supply than there is demand for really good coffee. And you're going to think you're buying good coffee. They're going to give you samples of really good coffee, and then you're going to receive it, and it's not what you remember." And I said, "Well, how can I keep that from happening?" He said, "Well, you have to roast. It's only in the roast that you start learning what quality is." So I started in 2002 with a 1 pound roaster. I could do 4 batches an hour. I remember I had 5 1 pound bags sitting there, and the first customer drove in my drive and said, "What do you got?" And I said, "I got 5, 1 pound bags of Nicaragua there." And they said, "I'll take it." And I looked at them, "You're going to take all my coffee?" and so that 1 pound soon became 5, and then a 30, and I have 2 35-pound roasters now. That we do about 3,000 pounds a week that we roast and ship.
Gotcha.
Right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now you've done some candy bars on the side, and I just have to bring that up because I love your candy bars, man. They are phenomenal.
Yeah, we grind that coffee up. That's I tell you, chocolate and coffee go together like a hug and squeeze,
yes,
man.
They do.
That's good. Yep.
Oh, that's good stuff.
It's interesting. Chocolate and coffee grow on the same soil, same altitude. Cacao is a cover crop for the coffee bush.
Really?
And the chocolate is a pod, just like a huge, foot long coffee bean. And they're depulped and fermented and washed and roasted very much just like coffee. It's an interesting companion.
That is interesting. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I guess you're right. There's the processing is very similar. The soil is similar. Where they grow. That's crazy. I didn't. Yeah, it just for whatever reason just came together in my head.
Yep.
That's interesting. So why bring coffee together with hunting? Where's the motive there?
I've got some little phrases I talk about because growing up with going to deer camp. I mean, literally the first one up in the morning, put the coffee on. If you didn't, there was mutiny. Coffee made the hunting world go around. Still does.
Right.
It's crazy how coffee is everywhere. There's hunters. It's a great beverage to kind of sit around during the afternoons when you're getting ready to go out for the evening hunt. It's a great beverage to get you up in the morning, get you kick in the butt, and get out to the tree stand.
Yep.
It really is a companion to hunting. It's almost right there with your bullets and your safety vest. Coffee. It really is a hunting product, but we've given it over to wherever. My biggest competitor is the hunters that are listening to this, their spouse. And
right.
Probably majority of them are men, but I'm not going to take that. There's a lot of women hunting these days, but a hunter's wife who is buying groceries at Kroger or Aldi's or whatever store you have, she just buys whatever coffee is on the shelf and brings home, and that's what the dude's gonna drink the next morning when he goes hunting.
Right. But
I say, why not think about it just like you do when you're looking at what grain bullet do I want to use in my 444 or whatever I'm shooting? Just think about it. This will be more effective in this setting. And I'm going to have coffee in my mug that I actually enjoy, that I actually like, and is actually supporting causes near and dear to me, and actually gives growers a fair shot at being sustainable and having thriving communities. It's kind of I don't know, it just kind of clicked with me. It makes the hunting world go around.
Yeah.
And so the hunter, somebody recently said, so Hunter's Blend, what's special about it that makes you shoot straighter? And I said, it's not that. Well, what's special about it that brings deer in? I said, well, unless you brew it in doe urine, it probably is not
right
contributing to deer coming in.
Which we're not going to do. Right.
You're not going to do that, no. But it's, it makes life a little easier on the stand. I'm actually, when I'm rifle hunting, I actually brew coffee right on my tree stand.
Really?
I have a little jet boil. I boil my water. I've got a little V60, Hario V60 little brewer, little cone.
Yep.
And I have my packs they're all ground, and my filter is in a little metallized frac pack. We do them up here. If somebody wants them, I can get them a pack of 60 of them. And I just tear it open, pull out my filter, and dump the coffee into the filter, pour my hot water over right into my thermos, my little mug. And, it's a little thing to take the boredom away. I don't do it when I'm bow hunting.
Sure.
But when I'm got some distance and I'm watching a big bean field. Yeah.
I love a good cup of coffee, not just in the deer blind. I mean, the duck blind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe turkey. We're doing
blind,
turkey around.
If you're working a blind for turkeys, sure. There's many applications here, but I don't think I've ever started a hunt without a cup of coffee in my life. Ever.
Right.
There's just something that I need to have. I don't know, maybe it's just a vice.
Yeah.
But I always feel like if I don't have that cup of coffee to start my day, then my whole day gets a little thrown off.
Yeah.
And that also goes for the hunt. If I don't have that cup of coffee, my hunt gets thrown off because I'm thinking about how it's just a routine. Like I get into a routine. Yeah. But man, the more I enjoy that cup of coffee, it puts me in a positive mindset because if I don't enjoy that cup of coffee, which is one of the first things I do in the morning.
Yeah.
Then I'm
a couple years ago. Yeah. A couple years ago, my brother-in-law and I did a backpack elk hunt out in southern Colorado. And it's crazy and I had really good coffee with me. I ground it, as we were getting ready to brew it. And it was almost one of those things where you couldn't wait. It was, you're getting up before daylight to get out and watch a meadow you wanted to watch, and it was almost like I couldn't wait to get up, get that ritual going of coffee. And I'd be out in the mountain and getting back to camp. I couldn't wait to get back and wash my face up and get some coffee on. Right. Yeah. It's just a little life's little luxury when you're hunting.
Yep. You talked a little bit about how you spent some time on the West Coast, Seattle, Oregon, learning the coffee business. Sound like you got some experience becoming, I think you referred to it as a cupper. You can identify certain elements in a cup of coffee. And
there's a certification called a Q grader, a licensed Q grader, Q for quality. And as you get into coffee, you start needing a language, a common way to describe coffee. One of the things we learned real quick was you never say that's really nice coffee. I used to use that a lot. That's nice.
Right.
And we got to say, what's nice about it? What are you tasting?
Right. And
what's the tongue feel? What's the aroma? What's the fragrance? What's the body? What's the acidity? And what's the aftertaste? And so cupping is taking 10 different areas, like I just said, those, and grading them 1 to 10. So you've got 100 possible score. And it's trying to, in an objective way, bring a set of protocols to judging coffee that anyone in the world who is trained would cup it and come pretty close to the same score and terminologies for that coffee. And there's about 400 of us in the U.S. that are licensed currently. And I 3 years ago just got certified, and then just a month or so ago, I had I had to get recalibrated every 3 years. You got to recalibrate. It's kind of a scary time. You want to keep it up. And as an importer of green coffee, I want to be able to grade my coffee and represent it fairly and accurately to buyers. So but that also, like tomorrow, I leave for Seattle. My wife and I are heading out to the Specialty Coffee Association Expo, and we'll be right in really kind of the cradle, you might say, the mother church of coffee.
Right.
And it's a lot of do-gooders, save the trees and the whales and the Smithsonian bird friendly and organic. And I'm not really cutting or degrading any of those causes, but they're very liberal in their context of how they're going to see those causes work out.
Right.
And very much against hunting, very much against even owning a gun. It's just you just take whatever political winds are blowing, and coffee picks it right up.
Yeah.
And
I've been to Seattle, and you're right. There's like this liberal vibe. But the coffee is phenomenal. And I don't think that as hunters who also love coffee, that we should deprive ourselves of good coffee simply because we are not in agreement with their movements. And I don't think
Jay, they do that a lot to the conservative causes.
Right. Oh, I agree.
They're the promoters of boycott. Yeah.
So I don't think a hunter would necessarily boycott a cup of coffee to start the day. However, when there's an alternative that is being generated by a company like yours and that is 100% backing hunter and hunter activities and gun rights and all those things, I'd pick yours over any of them in a heartbeat, simply because I know more about your company. I know what you're behind. I don't know that about Starbucks. And it sounds like through your experiences that there's a lot of very left-wing, very anti-hunting, anti-gun.
I like shopping there. They're great ultralight, trekking and hiking. But if it has a hook or goes bang, they don't sell it. And they're pretty proud of that.
That sounds like an awful way to describe your business, but hey, that's just us. We're on the other side of that. Very interesting. What's your earliest recollection of hunting, and what does hunting mean to you today?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was listening a while back to Rodney Elmer, the guy you had on, and he was like describing my life when he was talking about Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and coonskin hat.
Absolutely.
I had the whole garb, 9-10 years old.
Yep. So did I.
I had a coon tail, probably was a rabbit hat. But even to this day, I love the pioneer period, that 1775 to 1825, when they were opening up kind of the Ohio Valley, and there was a westward move. And I live in Ohio, so I've studied that 50-year period in there. And to really think that there was a time when, everybody was off grid, and elk and deer were plentiful, and, just kind of, a hunting area, and Native Americans running around. Anyhow, that's fascinating. But that caught my attention as a kid. I grew up in between Akron, Canton, Ohio, kind of an urban setting. Mm-hmm. And I remember my dad, all excited, brought me out to the edge of a field, and there was a deer track. I mean, there just were no deer. And now in that area, my uncle just passed away. He was kind of a hunting hero to me. Okay. And he got some 150, 160 class buck out of the little suburban woodlots and parks and things around Akron, Canton. There's deer like crazy. And it's just a success story to the deer's, ability to thrive and blossom if we gave them a chance to do that.
Yeah.
But I was about 10 when we moved to south of Erie, Pennsylvania. And so my awareness in hunting came about in more that Pennsylvania hunting heritage, which may be a little bit more like New England, but the hunting camp where you'd go Sunday, Monday, buck season started Monday morning. There was no school, restaurants were shut down, gas stations. There was just now they open at 3 a.m. to capitalize on the city people coming in that area to hunt. But back when I was a kid, it just all shut down. There was nobody to go to school. There was no teachers to teach. Everybody was out hunting. And I remember I had my coonskin hat on. I was probably 10 years old. I had my dog and a slingshot. And I'm out, and I got a fluorescent vest on, and I'm walking it out through the woods, and I get on a track. There's about 6-8 inches of snow. And I get on that track, and as I approach a pine grove, I hear a shot at the other side. And so I skirt around the pine grove, and there's a guy gutting out a buck. Not just an average. Pennsylvania, if it's brown, it's down.
Right.
That's the way we grew up, man.
Right.
That's my early, and then, it was just from that, just picking up on, I think I pushed that deer, I was pushing him and pushed it to a hunter.
Yeah. And
it clicked with me. I think my dad let me, I started sighting in my shotgun with slugs. And at first I was 12 and I got my first buck, but I learned early on the power of sitting in a stand when everybody else, if you want to be successful, you got to do what everybody else isn't doing. And about 10:30, people start getting up and walking around because they're cold.
Right.
And I shot more deer from 10 to noon than any other time in Pennsylvania because of people up pushing deer around.
Interesting. I mean, we hear this over and over from some of the gurus and the hunters that we interview. That's more or less a common theme. Say, hey, go hunt when everybody else isn't, or is going back to the truck for lunch. That's when you want to be there.
Yeah. It's really kind of a principle in life, Jay. If you'll go further and push harder and work more than anyone else, you possibly put yourself in a position to maybe have more and be further than others.
Right.
So
there's also that zigzag mentality, right? Zig when they zag.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
That seems to work out pretty good too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Although when I'm fishing, I want to be where everybody else is getting them.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, fishing can be birds and boats and and whales. That's a good indicator on the ocean for sure.
Yeah.
You seeing we're on the subject of hunting and coffee. How would you, as a coffee connoisseur and owner of Hemisphere Coffee Roasters and a licensed cupper, how do you go about preparing a cup of coffee at deer camp?
Well, I mean, you need hot water, just off a boil. So no matter if you're in deer camp is a motorhome, or if deer camp is a spike tent camp, or if deer camp is in the cabin. Some are easier places, but you got to have water just off a boil.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna. You didn't prep me on this, but if I got 8 or 10 guys in camp, I'm probably going to come with some kind. I actually like that little Coleman coffee brewer. Looks just like a Mr. Coffee brewer.
Yeah, right.
Coleman. Yeah. That does 8-10 cups at a time. Pretty decent. Or I'll take an electric. I would just stay away from a percolator of any kind. The theory of a percolator is where coffee is being sucked up. It's not hot yet, but it goes over the ground, showers over the grounds. And then coffee that's half or just, beginning to turn color, that's punched up. It just recirculates through the grounds. Coffee is best made when it's once through, when the hot water, 200-degree water, is put over the grounds and out. And you strip away the best aroma, the best flavors off that first time through.
Gotcha.
So I'd look for some kind of a brewer, a drip brewer. But I use a Hario V60. It's a cup, a single cup brewer. If it's just me and 2-3 other guys. So I got my hot water. I'd set my cups, 2-3 cups out, and I'd have this cone with a paper filter, and I'd have a hand grinder, and I grind my coffee just before I hit the water. So in the coffee business, we talk about green unroasted coffee is good for 2 years, roasted whole bean good for 2 months, and ground coffee good for 2 minutes. So that's kind of the magic formula, because there's aroma and elements, almost chemical, and acids and sugars that when you grind it are released, and they'll dissipate off, never to be found again after 2-3 minutes. So
Gotcha.
you just, and the grind is very important. If it goes through too quick, it's going to be fun. It's going to be, just weak. If it hangs up like mud and just you got to ground too fine, it'll over extract and there can be a bitterness that comes out. So the grind is very important.
Gotcha. All right.
And I have a little ultralight bag pull out that I keep my brew kit. So I'm going down the road and put my wife to driving, and I'll have my jet boil and boil right between my legs and make a pot of coffee, a cup of coffee right there.
That's awesome. I got to look at this thing online. This jet.
Yeah, it's like a backpack stove, little way to heat water.
Gotcha.
Well, so a lot of people that use like freeze-dried meals, Mountain House meals.
Yes,
they know what a jet boil is to make hot water.
Gotcha. Okay. And you're right. I didn't prep you on that one. But as I'm sitting here listening, I'm like, man, I really want to know how that guy makes a good cup of coffee, because I bet he knows how better than I do.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd go. Well, let's take a coffee break. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Paul Kurtz. People ask, why coffee? What makes Hunter's Blend a hunting coffee more than any other coffee? Well, on the surface, coffee makes the hunting world go round. How many times have you heard, first one up in the morning, put the coffee on? But it goes much deeper than that. No matter where you buy your coffee or who roasts it, someone had to import those green beans. The reality is, generally speaking, most green coffee importers view the world very differently than we do and would support lobbyists that fight against hunting and our way of life. Well, at Hunter's Blend, they're hunters too. They buy directly from family farmers in Nicaragua and Thailand and bring Hunter's Blend coffee to you. So from the farmer to your hot steaming mug of Hunter's Blend coffee, your coffee is in the hands of hunters. They donate part of their proceeds to hunting and conservation causes and help preserve and promote our hunting way of life. And the kicker is, it's really good coffee. The comment they hear the most is, it's very smooth. Hunter's Blend is a medium to dark roast coffee with bold, rich flavors without the bitterness. Go to huntersblendcoffee.com to order some today. And when checking out, tell them you heard about the coffee on the Big Buck Registry. And as always, tell your local hunting store about Hunter's Blend Coffee and ask them to carry it. Hunter's Blend Coffee, we're hunters too. And now back to our conversation with Paul Kurtz.
It is crazy though, Jay, how you can be in the elements of hunting and the coffee can be mediocre, if not even bad.
Right.
And it tastes pretty good because you're overlooking a valley and you're in the pines and there's a brook and, it's just gorgeous.
Right.
And so coffee, it can be instant, it can be crystals, but it's hot in the morning, it's chilly and it's hot and you got it between your hands and it's, there's the cup and it's good. We have couples, young married couples will come into our shop and they'll say, do you have any Kona? And I say, yeah, we have a Kona. It's not that great. And so they'll drink it. And I'm like, yeah, that's not as good as I remember it. And I always bring them back to what you're remembering is your honeymoon.
Right.
Looking out over the ocean, sun setting, looking into each other's eyes, and you're drinking Kona coffee. And you want me to replicate that experience in my cup here in my shop. Can't do it.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. There is something about a bad cup of coffee on a good hunting morning. I mean, it's still going to be okay.
That's right.
It's hard to kill that. But a good cup of coffee on a good hunting morning is just pristine. So I'm with
yes,
you.
indeed. Yep. Indeed.
So on the show, we'd like to hear a really good deer hunting story. And I know you have one and I know you've told it before, but I want to hear this because I think anybody that's listening to the show who hasn't heard it somewhere else really needs to hear this story. It's really, it involves a spider and a huge buck.
Yeah. 174 and 5/8.
That's
nice
a monster, buck. Right?
Yeah. Well, it was 2 years ago. I was doing some landscaping and must have got bit by a spider. But at the time, my leg just started swelling up. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, here, take this. And 2 weeks later, I could hardly stand. And I'm a big follower of the Hunt Fish Journal podcast, if I can mention them. There's a guy named Jerry Everhart, who
sure.
came up with
A legend.
came up with a system of doing a series of scrapes around your stand and heating them up starting in September with doe urine and estrus, and basically trying to get bucks to say, there's a girlfriend here. She's here. And every 9 days, go back out and heat them up again. And doing the, scent free, being very sensitive with your scent, but go in and heat them up. And then that there are some key days just prior to the rut that the deer, the mature deer, the nocturnal, will start running during the day. And that's when to be on your stand. He's got all kinds of statistics where for every day you're on your stand, what less chance how you're pressuring and less chance of seeing deer from that stand.
Yeah.
So the first time you're on your stand, you want it to be the best possible day of catching that buck running during daylight.
Yep.
And so that key day was like, I can't remember anymore, but it was like, let's say Tuesday. And Tuesday morning, I get up. Of course, I got this situation on my ankle that I'm hobbling around, and it's bow season. It's just after Halloween's probably November 1st. And I get pre-dawn, I'm in my tree, and by 9 o'clock, man, I cannot take it. I've got my leg up on a crotch of the tree trying to elevate it. And it's like, I cannot hunt like this. And I could hardly stand. I could hardly sit. So as I'm coming down my tree, I bust this big guy. I had him on some trail cameras. I knew he was working the scrapes. He was tearing these scrapes all up. And I generally go, before I was doing this, I would go with 2 or 3 different bucks that I would see running in this area. And I was seeing 15, 16 different buck. And it was all I contributed to this urine stuff, the system I was doing. Anyway, so I figured, I grew up in Pennsylvania. You bust a buck like that, that's the last time you see him, And so about a week later, I go out again, and I lasted till 10 or 11 o'clock, and I got down out of my tree, and as I'm walking out, I busted again. The same big deer just bounded away. I was like, oh man. But I went to the doctor. I said, dude, I am hurting. He said, well, put your leg up and pull your pant leg up. Let me take a look. And he looks at it and he said, oh my goodness. And he calls all his girls and all the nurses and the other doctor, brings them all around. And I'm like, help me, man. And he said, you know how everybody comes in here and says they've been bit by spiders and brown recluse? And they're all like, yeah. This is a brown recluse spider. This for real. I'm like, okay, so what do I do? He said, well, we got to get the scabs off. I said, how do we get the scabs off? He said, you don't want to know. He said, you're going to hang on to the bed rail here, and I'm going to scrape.
Ooh.
Now, he said, come back next. He gave me an appointment like 4 or 5 days. Come back and but in the meantime, get those scabs off somehow. I said, and so I came home, and right across the road from my roastery is a pharmacy. Yeah. And I walk over and I said, John, I need to get the pharmacist. I need to get some scabs off my leg. He said, well, pull your pant leg up. So I pull it up, and he about has a heart attack. He said, what the world? I said, I think I've been bit by a brown recluse. And there's this kid. He's no more than 17, 18-year-old kid. Looks at him and said, that's brown recluse. And I said, what do you know about brown recluse? And he said, man, I was bit in the shoulder a couple months ago, and the doctor was talking about amputating. And I went home and I did a search online, and I got this stuff. He said, where can I find you? And I said, well, I'm just across the road. He said, hang tight, I'll be right back. And this kid comes in 20 minutes later. I left the pharmacy. The doctor said, I ain't got nothing. Or the pharmacist said, I got nothing to help you. And this guy gave me this, it's like brown or black soot almost. It was like a charcoal. And there was some little liquid that kind of made it like a honey, like a paste. Yeah. And you mix it up, put like a poultice on there, and I saran wrap around my leg. That's what he told me to do. He said, just leave it on there. He said, you'll notice change tomorrow. Well, the next morning I'm in the shower, and there's quarter-size scabs coming off in the shower.
Wow.
And it began, in a week later, it was like, it wasn't healed, but it was totally reversing. It was closing up.
Yeah.
It was just large. Muscle was just deteriorating. It was really, I was either going to lose the leg or have a serious muscle problem but it stopped. And then during rifle season, I decided, well, I blew this whole rut thing. rut functional hunting is what Jerry calls it. I blew that all with my legs. So,
Right.
but I had kept putting urine out in the scrapes, and the scrapes were still being worked up.
Huh.
So I went out to this stand, and it was towards the end of the evening. I saw out in the CRP, it was kind of a set aside strip, this deer stand up, and I put my binoculars on it, and I was like, I couldn't tell what all. I saw some horn, but I just thought, man, that's a huge body. And I had a lever action 444, not a long distance gun by any means, but it's a carryover from my Pennsylvania days. I loved a thuddy, carrying the lever action around. And Ohio just allowed straight walled cartridges to be used, so I could use a 444. And I hit him to base of his neck, and he dropped. And as I walked up to him, it was dusk. As I walked up to him, it was funny. It's like, man, he's holding it. His nose is a foot off the ground. What's he doing? Trying to get up? And as I got up to him, I saw, it had this big rack. But yeah, it's a nice deer. And it was really, to me, it's a testament of that deer just hung in that area because it was totally hoodwinked, that there was, and I use that method to this day. I've gotten nice deer. I don't have a lot of time to hunt. I used to just love to be out in the woods, probably informing every deer in the woods. Now I got 4 or 5 days with bow season. I hunt hard, and I'm just sitting in a stand. Yeah.
That's a good story. That's a good story, Paul.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. I've got 10 rapid fire questions for you, Paul.
All right.
I haven't prepped you for these. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
I guess I'd have to say get out early and stay long, Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. We have these things that I think I might know what this one is. If we don't carry this item with us, it kind of bugs us all day, and we wish we had it with us, and we'd leave it in the truck, leave it at home. We're just thinking about it all day. What's that one thing for you that you really don't want to hunt without?
Well, right now it seems to be my cell phone.
Right? Yeah, cell phones are key.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I tell you, when I'm bow hunting, the worst thing is you did all your preparation, drove out there, you get up in your tree, and it's just starting to get dawn. You realize your release is not where you thought it was.
Yep. I thought it was in this pocket, and it's not.
Yeah.
That's awful. All right, what's your biggest pet peeve in life?
I think people not following through, people saying they're going to do something and not doing it.
Yep. That's a good one.
It probably is because it's something I struggle with, and I work hard at being who I say I'm going to be, doing what I say I'm going to do, and let my yay be yay.
Gotcha. How old are you today?
I'm 58.
You're 58. What would you tell the 30-year-old Paul Kurtz, knowing what you know today?
Don't sweat the little stuff. I mean, and don't care what people think about you. Just be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. You're at a hunting convention somewhere in the world, and you strike up a conversation with a stranger. And that stranger asks you what you do for a living. What would you say?
I import and roast coffee directly that's purchased directly from farmers.
Gotcha. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Ham and cheese kind of turnover thing. The bakery across the street made it. It was pretty good. Yeah, kind of a filled bread roll thing. Yeah.
I need to come hang out with you.
Yeah. Come on out. Yeah. And we had Hunter's Blend coffee.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Smell that roast all day long. Eat some chocolate. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
You can have your own billboard on the side of a highway. It's a blank canvas. You put anything you want on it. What would it say?
Now that's catching me off guard.
Yeah, it's a good one.
A billboard I can put anything on it.
Yeah. Hashtag, advertisement, life theory, whatever.
Yeah. I'd probably, this is totally random. I'd probably say something about, go home and love the people that love your family, love people that are close to you, tell them you love them. Yeah. Something like that.
Sure, man.
My brother was 59 and he fell over dead with a heart attack. I'm preparing to be 59 in a month. So I've been doing a lot of just going to the doctor saying, look, here's my family history. What's my heart like? What's my health like? And, just thinking about my brother's wife and family and kids that, he can't tell that to. And he probably didn't say it enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. For sure. For sure, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
I would say my dad.
Okay.
He was faithful like crazy to my mom and to us kids. He was success.
Nice. I like that. What's a typical day in your life look like?
I usually get here to the roastery around 7:30. Look at the orders. If I need to do some roasting, I'll do it. We're building a new facility, so I'm just out there. If there's contractors and mechanical people there, just making sure they're on target. And I do a lot of the invoicing, a lot of the online orders that need to go out. So I take care of those, do the online stuff. That's pretty typical. Some roasting, some office work.
Gotcha. All right. And then what's a typical deer hunting day in your life look like?
Would be doing a lot of work the night before, getting things laid out,
Right.
set out, making sure my clothing, I use a lot of the scent crusher bag anymore. And with eyes, whatever,
Yeah.
the eyes, what do they call that? The ozone generator.
Ozone
thing.
generator, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm getting everything ready the night before, doing a lot of work, so I can get up, not have to take a couple hours prepping in the morning. I want everything ready.
Yeah.
Get to my tree stand well before day. I like to get in really early and let everything settle down before it even thinks about getting daylight. And if it's bow season, I'll probably if I take a break, it's going to be a little earlier, like 10 or 11. And then I like to be out over from noon into 1 and 2 o'clock into evening. But I found the way I hunt this rut functional, I found that that 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock is just as good as first thing in the morning. There's another, seems like another loop that deer might be making, big bucks might be making soon after lunch.
Yeah. Very good.
So I mean, if on those key days that I'm hunting, I'm kind of out there all day. I've learned that if I fill the water tank, that's metaphorically speaking, I can pull from it those 4 or 5 days. So if I've got everything that needs to be done at home, make sure they're done. Everything needs to be done at the business, make sure those are done. And my wife can look at me square in the eye and say, "You deserve it. Get lost for 4 days." If I can get to that point, that's success.
That is,
for my
oh man,
yeah.
such a good
There's
definition of
nothing
success.
worse.
Right.
There's nothing worse than being on a tree stand with 10 other things you ought to be doing.
Right.
And you know you're going to pay.
Right.
Yeah.
I hate that. There's always a sheer panic the day before the season starts too. Where's all my stuff? Sheer panic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But I love the journey. Isn't it fun though, getting ready for it?
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
It really is. Man, I love that.
Yep.
So I hear you're a Jeep guy.
Oh yeah.
All right,
Oh,
I'm giving you the Jeep wave from the Big Buck
Yeah.
Studios right now.
Okay.
I am also
Good
a
deal.
Jeep guy, and I got into.
Are you an old Jeep or what do you
I'm
got?
a fairly new Jeep,
Okay.
but I have roots back to an old Jeep. My grandfather drove it. He taught me how to hunt, and he drove this
wow.
red Jeep from,
Wow.
he's had
Yeah.
coming out of World War II. He had a Jeep the whole time, and he bought different variations of Jeeps as I grew up and lived right next door to him. And he spent more time in the woods with me than my dad did even. And just always remember driving around in that old red Jeep. And
Yeah. I had an old CJ5, but I've got a 97 right now that's
nice.
Big 33 inches on it and a lift, and it takes me through the fields where I need to go. It's not something I run into town on, but it'll work.
And for years, I still have my Chevy pickup truck. I do like a good pickup truck. But I finally got into a Jeep a couple of years ago, and I was coming back from a hunting trip in Ohio, as a matter of fact, and we hit that Erie line, that snow belt comes off of Lake Erie, and the highways were backed up for like 40 miles. And we dropped down in the low gear, 4 low, and went around everything, all the emergency vehicles, the pickup or the tractor trailer trucks that are jackknives, and the old cars that are just spinning their tires. We drove around.
Wow, that's cool.
That prompted me to go get a Jeep, and ever since, now I can get out in the hills of New Hampshire and get in and out of places that I couldn't even dream about going with my pickup truck.
Exactly. Yeah,
they are phenomenal rigs.
They are. They're very utility. Yeah,
very much so. And they fit a lot of stuff in the back if you get the larger 4 doors. It's amazing how much stuff you can fit in there.
I'm just kind of a practical guy, and I can't believe it's 2018 why every car isn't really front wheel, kind of all wheel drive.
Yeah.
I know Subaru does it and others. My wife has a little CRV Honda front wheel, 4-wheel drive. And, we got a little knoll in our drive. And you would just think everybody that all the cars would be all wheel drive now.
Yeah.
Just because it just goes places that the rear, the front only just won't go.
Right. I'm with you. Absolutely. All right. So I know that Hunter's Blend is coming to New Hampshire. Obviously, we brought it in a little bit, and now it's being sold over at Morse's Sporting Goods.
Yes.
Recently, so we're very excited about that. So, guys in New Hampshire, if you're jonesing to try this stuff, you can go over to Morse's. But for those that can't get to Morse's, those that are not in New Hampshire, where can we learn more about your product? How can they reach out to you? Where can we buy Hunter's Blend coffee?
Yeah. I mean, right now, the best place is online, huntersblendcoffee.com. And I would encourage, rather than just buying one bag and paying $6.50 or $7 for shipping, get 6 to 8 bags. And I'm going to say something here that a lot of coffee people probably are going to scream and kick and fight, but there's been a lot of research on the advantage for 10 days after coffee's roasted. It off gases CO2.
Yeah.
And in that time, it's what we call alive. It's fresh. Mm-hmm. And if you freeze it in that time, and here the little hesitancies for me saying freeze is because you can't use bags that you tear open and roll the lid down and close them and put them in the freezer. They'll dry out. They'll take on flavors of other stuff in the freezer. But the bags that we ship are resealable. They're foil lined. They're a good airtight bag, and you put them in the freezer. You can, a year later, I've done these tests, and a chemist named Michael Savitz in Oregon did these tests as well. He was concerned with freshness. What can be done to keep coffee fresh? Because everybody knows coffee, it doesn't matter if it's the world's best coffee. 4 months later, if it's on the counter, it's nasty,
right,
and it's gone. There's no aroma.
Right.
And so I just encourage people, if they go online, bring 5 or 6 or a dozen of them in, throw them in the freezer. Shipping is a fraction per bag then, and it's not, and pull them out, as you pull a bag out and blow through it.
Gotcha.
And that way it's not getting old on you. What's funny is when you put it in the freezer, when you bring it out, as it thaws, you can just see the bag starting to swell up and start off gassing, and it just picks up in time where it was frozen down on.
Moment frozen in time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Very cool. So the website is
huntersblendcoffee.com.
Okay. All right. Very good.
And in there, we kind of tell our story, and you can see it's my 2 brother-in-laws. I feel like, what was that sitcom, Daryl, my other brother, Daryl, some Newhart or something.
Newhart, yeah.
But no, it's Mike Sorsenchuber's my wife's brother, and then Ken Beachy is married my wife's sister. So the 3 of us, we love hunting, we love coffee, and we're just kind of working at this together. And you can meet us on there. We show you some of our kills, and
love it, man.
We're on Instagram, Hunter's Blend Coffee. We're on Facebook, and look us up.
Very cool. I really have enjoyed working with you guys. It was a pleasure meeting you and get to know all of you guys better. And,
and we met at the ATA, Jay.
We did. Yep.
You were that skinny, short guy with lots of hair.
Yep, that's me. The good-looking one. I'm the good-looking one.
Yeah, the good-looking one.
Yeah. But it's been fun and trying your product. And again, I'm a big fan of coffee, so it's not easy to get a coffee by me because I'll reject most. But man, yours passed the test, flying colors. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks. And I don't know, coffee is almost like, it's interesting you say that, because the more I get into coffee, the more I realize when you ask people to change their coffee or to test it's like asking them to pull their pants down,
right. It's tough.
They just don't change easy. They resist.
Right.
I used to walk into coffee shops and say, hey, I'm Paul Kurtz with Hemisphere Coffee Roasters, and I'd like to give you some samples. We're not interested. People just don't like to change their coffee. Right. Restaurants don't. It's just so.
Right. Well,
I'm honored
I
to say
didn't
that.
either,
Yeah,
but I gave it a chance,
yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah. Appreciate it.
this is
And
going
look,
to work
invite
out.
anybody, give it a
Right.
chance too.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And I got to ask you, where do you still sell the candy bars?
Yeah, we do.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because
Okay, Jay, I'll get you more.
no,
Yeah.
you don't. I'll buy them off you. I'll pay you handsomely for your candy bars. Believe me, they're phenomenal. Awesome, Paul. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. It's really nice to hear your background, and I love the mission that you're on. I love how you got started, and that you're continuing to make a really good coffee and get this blend out there to hunters of the world, and that the cause behind it supports the causes that we believe in as hunters. I think that's very important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what motivates me a lot too is this goes back about 6-8 years, but when I first met Diego Chavarria, and his on our website, hunterblendcoffee.com, is a link to the video that introduces him. But he was selling his coffee to commodity pricing, just whatever he could get. It was barely covering costs, if it did at all.
Mm-hmm.
He had never consumed, he had 600 acres of coffee, 200 to 300 pickers. You know, he's big deal, but he never drank his own coffee.
Yeah.
And when I first asked him, Diego, what's your coffee like? He said, I don't know. I said, do you ever drink it? What do you mean you don't know? He said, I don't know. We sell it all. We sell every bean because we need all the sales we can get.
Yeah.
I said, well, let's figure this out. So I took a little, it's almost like a heat gun little thing that produces 600 degrees, got a little funnel on it, and I roasted right in front of him and his 4 brothers about 300 grams of like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We took it and ground it right there. His wife Gloria brought a tea kettle, and I had a little Hario V60 and the paper filters.
Yeah.
And we made a cup, and I handed it to him. And when he drank it, to see these big tears come down his eyes, it's like, oh, that is good coffee. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, we're on to something here. And to see him come alive, and now he is excited about getting me, because his name's on the bag, and 2-3 containers are coming up here from his farm every year. He's in control of his future by doing really good work.
Yeah.
That's a lot to say for developing countries who, you know, if they give him a chance, and I gave this guy a chance and he's rising to it. That's what makes me tick.
Yeah.
That's what I love to see, helping them help themselves.
Right. Yeah.
They don't need a handout anymore. They don't need handouts are like cocaine, man. You just need another fix when that one's over, you know, and it destroys dignity and purpose. And yeah,
fish for a day or fish for a lifetime, right?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That's love it. Absolutely love everything you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us and stepping into the studios and getting into it.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate Paul coming on the show and giving us an insight on how he created Hunter's Blend Coffee. It's really nice to know that behind this brand, you have a group of hunters that support the very things that we as hunters support as well and have in our lives. And it's just nice to know that when you take that sip of that cup of coffee, and it tastes darn good, believe me, that you know that you've got the full support of people just like you. It makes that coffee taste even better. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
You know, I am going with a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week, but we're going to base it off turkey hunting just to change it up for 1 week.
10-4. Sounds good. The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
You know, you got that big strutter coming in. You can hear him every time he gobbles. He's getting closer and closer and closer. And then all of a sudden he goes quiet. And you're like, man, he's gone. He's just gone. That's the mental thought that you automatically pick up.
Right.
But in reality, that turkey's close enough that he feels he don't need to call anymore.
Right.
And when he's not talking, I'm not talking. So just be careful. Don't overcall. When that gobbler gets close, he's going to go quiet mouth probably for the last 200 yards. Just don't overcall. Let him talk to you. And if you need a response to him, do it. But just be real careful in that last 200 yard draw in, because boy, he's going to go quiet mouth and he's going to strut. You'll hear him drumming, and he's going to be real quiet. It's pretty cool, though.
That's awesome. Yep, that's a good one, and appropriate for this time of year. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. As far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice, let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.